Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to episode 53 of the Breaking Point podcast. I'm here with EasyMac. We're going to dive into a load of stuff that went on over this last week. The second week of qualification matches for the major. These upcoming matches this weekend, all important for the seeding for the major tournaments at the start of March. There was a fair bit of drama this week once again. It's a classic in the Call of Duty world. New York, still a shambles. What's going on there? So much to dive into. Austin, how you doing? I know it's a busy day for you. You've got practice. The Elite's going on right now as well. We're going to talk a little bit about that from the Challengers front. But yeah, you had a good week?
Yeah, killing it. So had a good Valentine's Day. Took off for the Super Bowl. So, it's nice to be back and grinding.
Who wanted to win the Super Bowl? I watched the first quarter of it, and then I just like the adverts, I find marketing generally fascinating, so I just watch it for the adverts.
I wanted the Bengals. I was pissed.
Because they I don't know, there was some drama, right? There was some controversy because they were winning and then last minute touchdown or whatever.
Yeah, they were winning and then they just absolutely decided let's not play defense. And then torched me.
It's rigged. It's rigged.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, no, exactly. A couple of things I wanted to crack into before we talk about last week's matches. So, firstly is ranked play. I kind of always want to call it league play, but it is ranked play in this game. Like the two always get conflated. But it was only really league play back in Black Ops 2, and that's kind of people still call it that because it's kind of gold standard. But since then, it's been called ranked in general. Now, it comes tomorrow, or when you guys are watching after the fact here on YouTube. Thanks to all those watching live on Twitch, and of course, after the fact on the podcast platforms. So yeah, it's coming out tomorrow, probably today when you guys are listening to this. It might already be here. But there's a lot of really promising things that were announced before last week's matches kicked off. Of course, we've heard the rumors for a while. Okay, yes, it's going to be like an ELO-based system. It's going to be the ranked play we've been asking for, because pretty sure during Cold War, Vonderhaar came out and said, "Oh, I didn't realize people wanted an ELO system." It's like, okay, have you not really been paying attention? You clearly haven't been paying attention if you didn't realize that's what the community wanted. But in fairness, because a lot of the time I think as a competitive community, we kind of feel like, they don't really listen to what we're interested in. We're such a small subset. But I think we've been very clear about the type of things we want in ranked play. And it seems like they're delivering exactly that. If it comes out tomorrow as we expect it to, with the ELO system, with the settings as the pros play with the thing I like the most, I think, is the top 250 scoreboard ranking, so that anyone in the world can get a top 250 rank and be seen there at the top of the ladder and play against the pros. It's very exciting. Of course, it's later than it should be. We'd argue that it should come earlier in the season, but whatever. I mean, look, it's Vanguard as well. Hopefully they carry this over to future years. The thing I'm excited about is that if Treyarch are doing this for Sledgehammer and it goes down well with the community, then my hope is that Infinity Ward, who obviously don't care about competitive, Activision just say, hey, Treyarch, just do the ranked play, copy and paste that bad boy into the next game, and then do it again. You'd think it wouldn't be that hard. If Treyarch can work with Sledgehammer to make it happen, they should be able to work with the other developers to also work on their ranked modes, because those are the guys that we know have the backs of the competitive scene. So those are kind of the exciting parts to me. It's finally here, Austin. Personally, I'm just looking forward to the content. I really enjoyed watching players play World War II ranked on stream, get into a really sweaty lobby where there's actually points on the line. It's not just eights that with no meaning. People actually might take some of these, ranked play games more serious than they do eights, right? Because there's actually stake on the line in terms of where you sit in terms of the top rankings.
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited because we'll finally have something to grind after practice. Because I think ranked is a lot better practice than eights is if it's like the World War II style system, because basically that was eights, because you would just rank up against people with high elo, and it was pretty much just high tier amateur players and pro players playing off against each other, but they wouldn't want to lose because they wouldn't want to lose their elo, so they were actually playing to win. So I'm actually really excited because it just gives a lot of content, a lot of streaming content. So I think you'll start seeing a lot of players start streaming, which is pretty good for drama, because you'll have players going at each other, but you also have a lot of YouTube. You'll have a lot of ranked play matches, because I want to see hopefully a lot of these pro players actually clip the games they do good in and throw it up on YouTube, because I like watching good ranked matches, especially when there's a lot of different pro players and amateur players, because I don't know. It changes the game because like when you look at World War II, that game was I'll put it as subpar, but ranked was the best ever. And like if you go and look at Ryan Bacardi's YouTube channel, he was getting 500,000 views uh for ranked play videos on that game. So can you imagine if like things actually go good? There's a good SR, there's a good, map. We finally get some more maps down the line. If stuff starts, doing well, like who knows? It could be like a pretty good like way for players to start growing their YouTube in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like, oh man, Ryan Bacardi, those are the days, right, when this guy would just be popping off on the main stage, smoking pro players, and then it's just people still talk about Bacardi on the subreddits and stuff because people remember that name from several years ago, and he's kind of like it's almost like Deloshi, right? People remember Deloshi from bringing out the Riot Shield at Black Ops 2 champs. It's kind of like a name that's kind of transcended time, and I'm sure there'll be someone like Ryan Bacardi that will come along and maybe make their name this time around on the ranked play system because it definitely implies things to be good. Charlie, hit the Google, you'll find him. The second thing I wanted to say before we go to the matches was the decision from ROKKR to pick up the Academy roster they've just brought in. I know you just mentioned that in the European Elite they just fell in the grand finals, but they were there again. They're pretty much, I think they've been in all the grand finals so far of the European Elites. But still, this is the Spanish team of Journey, Lucky, Real, of course, and Metals, right? And these guys have been out of control, dominating the European side, especially the Spanish side so far. And the ROKKR guys decide, okay, we're actually going to bring them on as an academy team, which interesting to me because I think they seem to be at least the front runners, kind of. Obviously, they didn't, at least in terms of the results over the course of so many weeks, they're still probably the favourites to be the number one team getting to the Prime Classic from the European side. And if they do that, you would think that another org, like a Heretics, might come in and say, hey, do you want to represent us at that event? And then ROKKR could, given they might be salaried, can have some sort of buyout. I don't know, because I don't imagine the CDO would want to have ROKKR Academy and ROKKR play at the same tourney because, there's always conflict of interest complications. Let's say they go to a quarterfinals and it's ROKKR versus ROKKR Academy, then there's an incentive for the academy to let the main team win. We don't really want that to happen. Of course, it's a question you can ask whether that matters or not, but still, I would think that their intention is either to try and sell this team on if they do well, or to actually consider getting some of the players. Who knows? Like, I know that Toronto tried that at the start of Modern Warfare. I think they had Metals and they had Lucky. I don't know. I think that was maybe the two that they had.
Yep.
And I think they did trial them in the starting roster because I think Looney might speak Spanish or something.
Yeah, they were in the starting roster to start.
Yeah, they were in the starting roster. Yeah, because of course it was 5v5. They're plenty of space. Yeah, I remember Lucky was doing some good things. They tried it, like the whole language thing didn't really work, so they didn't go down that route in the end. But they gave it a go, right? And it's maybe something that ROKKR are considering, just having those guys sitting there. They're an organization with the resources if they want to bring those guys over to the States. I'm sure, like, they can actually get their visas or whatever sorted, as opposed to some other organizations, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that might not bother to do so with some European players that they could pick up if they wanted to. So yeah, that's kind of my perspective on it. I don't know what you think about this, right? It's interesting. Last year we saw a couple of teams bring in academies. This year ROKKR's kind of the first org to do so. It's pretty exciting. Hopefully it sets a precedent. It shows that they certainly recognise the talent in the European region, which I think has been something we've been talking about for the last few weeks, is that there's a lot more outside of the US than a lot of orgs have given credit for so far.
Yeah, so I actually am curious, like, if there's a rule against academy teams being at the Pro-Am, because there was that Toronto like rumor that they were picking up an academy team as well. That makes me question.
They were going to get, what was it? It was going to be Hixie, DiamondCon, Royalty, and like another Canadian.
Exotic, I think. And
might be Exotic, yeah, it was Exotic. But now
yeah,
Royalty's gone to New York.
Yep. So like it makes me question whether that's a rule. I honestly don't know. So like I think there might be like a chance that academy rosters can like play and that there's no like ruling against it, which I think that's fine for one tournament. Obviously people are going to have their conflict of interest with that. But yeah, I think that was the number one team, I would say. I think they have the best European player right now in Lucky. I think Lucky's number one for me. He finished the elite with a 1.29. He also had a 1.74 in S&D and a 1.32 in hardpoint.
That's so insane.
Yeah, so he was killing it. Riel and Journey did okay. Like Journey's more like that aggro sub, so he finished with a high like Slayer rating. He had an 88 Slayer rating, which is good for third over in EU. And Riel had a 1.08. He did pretty good, but he kind of had his weaknesses in S&D. But overall, like that is, I would say that's the top team. Um, but there is actually a lot of other like European talent. Like Super finished with a 1.30. Denza had a 1.22. He that was part of the team that actually just won the elite. It was Denza, Keza, Mythics, and Watson. So that they just capped off the elite win with 3-1 victory over ROKKR Academy. So I'm actually excited to see like what other teams get picked up because you know, obviously the past 2 years we haven't gotten expansion due to obvious reasons. But this is like the 1 year where it actually makes sense for amateur teams to get picked up. And it's kind of weird we haven't seen that yet. So I'm just waiting for it to like I think you're just gonna see like randomly within like 2 weeks, you're just gonna see a ton of amateur orgs get in and try to be like that team that makes it into the pro-am.
Yeah,
So
that's what I think as well.
yeah, so I think ROKKR are trying to get in ahead of that. You saw War do that as well. War picked up Tom Gravity's team with Paul X, Venom, and Jimbo, and then you see ROKKR get in. So I think you'll start seeing more and more also as the weeks go on because again, this is like the 1 year where it honestly makes the most amount of sense because not only that, not only like the pro-am, I think there's a good chance that there are future pro-ams. And I think there's a good chance we actually have expansion next year. Like that's with no intel. I just really think genuinely like this might be a good year. We'll finally be able to have a good foundation that we have where we're able to have that, especially because I think like there are a couple of organizations that would be interested in that. So hopefully we get more amateur teams because I feel like that would be a good way to grow the elite. But overall, like props to ROKKR though for actually signing an academy team, investing into that, and picking up like I would say the best, definitely the best European team. Actually, like now that Revenge Sword has won, like I'll say one of the best European teams over there right now.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's yeah, that's optimistic. I like the sound of it. I think that you're probably right that this hopefully is going to be the right time to expand. We'll see what the economic situation looks like in later this year because obviously there's inflation and there's other macroeconomic trends that who knows where it's going to go. But with any luck, we'll be in a good spot. Obviously, the last couple of years haven't been great, so it would be nice for expansion to come through. I do wonder if they're going to still keep doing what they currently do because right now it seems like there's the way they do the COD matches, there's quite a lot because they don't have a Bravo stream. There's quite a lot going on already with just 12 teams. Like it's just something I was thinking about. If they have 16 teams, then they
You
have
would
to
see
have
a
way
Bravo
more.
stream. You
Yeah,
would
they would have to have a
100%.
Bravo stream because if they don't, I just don't see how they fit all these matches in within a reasonable amount of time. But that's a topic for down the line. Let's dive into the matches. I kind of want to focus generally on the teams that played 2 games this week, and we'll go through some of them that played just 1 because obviously there's some interesting storylines going around. The first one was Boston. They had an interesting week. They went 1-1. They beat Paris, but I mean, who doesn't beat Paris? And then they lost to you guys. So they looked all right. I think that Capsidol has a crazy high ceiling, and then some maps he just gets bodied, right? Which is something I guess that happens maybe with younger, newer players. Definitely a lot of potential there. I think that TJ so far this year has been better than maybe we expected, or at least I expected. I don't think he had the greatest series against FaZe, but even last year on Los Angeles Thieves, early part of last season, he looked pretty good. He had that crazy 12-0 search and destroy on Moscow, you might remember. But like after that, kind of went downhill, right? So I do wonder what's going to happen with TJ as the season progresses. Like Nero hasn't, like he's had maybe a couple of moments, but Nero hasn't particularly impressed me. So I don't know really what to think about Boston because when this team first formed, there was a lot of talk about the excitement and how good they were looking in scrims. They could even be top 4. Another way I look at it, like I just don't see this team before ever really contending for championships. And I feel like they're just only going to slip down the rankings as the season continues. That's just my take. I don't know what you think about that, Austin.
I think this is going to be one of the first teams to make a roster change. Just because I think their management is really, really good. Obviously, they have Zed and Dens. So if they feel like this team needs like a change, I don't feel like they're gonna wait. I feel like they're gonna be proactive in the market, which is really, really smart. It's what you want to do. You want to be able to go in and get the standees before the standee gets like grabbed, like as last year. As I think we talked in here, like a lot of teams know the weaknesses. They wait, and then that top prospect gets taken, and then it's like hard. So I feel like hot take, they might be one of the first teams to make that change. Obviously, TJ has a 0.95 right now. I don't think he's doing that bad. He has a 0.82 in hard point, which is like his weakness. But he's doing really, really well in S&D. He has a 1.83. He's doing pretty well in control. Cap has their best. He has a 1.07, but he's doing like really, really badly in control. He has a 0.87 or 0.75 in control. He's just getting bodied. He has some of the lowest statistics.
No guarantee he just gets worked like every time. Yeah,
just every time. It's really weird. And Neuro, I honestly have not been surprised. Like he's not really. I don't know. He has a 0.88 for the season. He's also getting bodied in control. He's not positive in any mode. He has one of the lowest TESs in the league, which is like the statistic I like came up with. It's like the percentage of your engagements that end in positively. So it's like kills or assists, and so he has one of the lowest. 52% of his engagements end in a kill or assist. So you usually want that to be in like the 58s, 57s. For an SMG, he's about 6 points below. So there's like some red, like they have a ton of good things though about this team. Where I think maybe if they are able to, yeah, right, I screwed up that word. But if you can fix the control, because like right now, like you have your two rookies just getting absolutely bodied in control, and even in that one match versus us, like they're just not. There's some plays that just, I think they're just having like brain farts on the map. Like one play that sticks out the most to me, like I said it right when I saw it. They were on attack on Gavutu versus us, and like with 4 seconds left, Neuro just ran up mid map and like gave us another kill. Whereas like when kills decide round 5, like you can't make a stupid play like that and just give away like free like kills, So like I feel like they just need to solve that riddle out. I feel like control is really hard right now. I feel like that's the hardest mode to actually figure out. So if they can solve that, they are the best S&D team right now in the league. So they have like 3 maps right there. They can be like the ROKKR-esque where they win like 2, 3, 5. But you can't be getting outslayed a lot in hardpoint right now. Like TJ, Neuro, and Methods are all negative in hardpoint. It's only Capsule that's doing really well. But they just have to find some like stability and figure out what your second best mode is. Because right now you're so damn good at S&D. Like they are the best team in S&D. Like, but what is your second best mode? You just have to find a way to get to the 3 maps wins. Like you can get 2 with your S&D, where you get in your 3rd map win. So once they figure that out, I feel like they're going to be in a good place. If they can't figure that out, it would not shock me to see them, make a roster move very early.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat, to be honest. I think it was kind of, when you've got a team like this that you've just pulled scraps together, it's kind of inevitable that the full team of 4 isn't going to click perfectly. You find a couple of pieces, you work with it. I'm sure that's what the guys are thinking about over there. That they did well, I think, with what they were handed to them, but there's plenty of players out there right now proving their worth in challenges that other teams have already considered, right? So, well, one of those players that at least was up for grabs that got put onto the Toronto sub bench was Hixie, who actually got a chance to play this week in a very interesting state of affairs. So Toronto go 2-0 in matches on the week. They go 6-0 map count on the week. Now, I was actually going to calculate like how many points they won by on average in those 6 map wins, because their series against Los Angeles Guerrillas, all the maps in that were close. And then they played Florida, and the maps were even closer. Like this with Hixie as a sub. But it does just go, I think it's a testament really to the fact that Toronto are so hard to beat in every mode. And like they're so good in the clutch. It's just incredible. They win 6 maps in a row this week, even with a sub against Florida, in very close fashion. Like down to the wire, you can count on Toronto, which is why I think against OpTic this week, it's going to be tough for them, because against Paris, as we'll talk about too in a few minutes, like OpTic there was no opposition. Like they just rolled over them. There was no Game 5, round 11, there was no 240 hardpoint that were needed to clutch up. Whereas Toronto are going to force you into those situations and generally win them. So I was just impressed, frankly, by the way Toronto was able to do this, especially the Florida series, just because Cammy has COVID, he steps out of the team, like doesn't feel great. Hixie steps in. So hopefully Cammy feels better soon. But And Hixie was awesome, honestly. I was really impressed, especially stepping into Cammy's role, which is tough. Like, it's not ideal, right? Because the way I kind of see this team is that maybe like Hixie could either another team comes out and says, hey, actually, we'll give you a bigger salary or something and works a buyout for him. Or he's like a long term, because if there's one player that's going to get replaced on Toronto in the next like 2 or 3 years. Let's say this team is still great, but eventually Bance retires, right? Like the other 3 guys are going to play longer than Bance is. So I don't know if they kind of think of Hixie in a Bance-esque role where you kind of run the SMG, similar maybe play style. I don't know. Like that's maybe where he fits best if you were to make a sub change. Whereas Cammy in the team, like that's not so ideal, right? Which is why I was impressed that Hixie and the guys were able to kind of switch around where they were playing and still have a really competent team. And the fact that Florida like lost that many maps in a row in such a fashion, like the game one was just kind of embarrassing. The fact that they outslayed by like 20 kills and still lost. Hixie spun on Dave Patty for the game, which is just crazy. Even the control was ridiculous. The search was round 11. But yeah, Toronto, man, just such a crazy team. Like it doesn't feel like they even play that well, but they still come out of the week 6-0 map count. Like it's just remarkable.
Yeah, it's Toronto for you. Like Toronto, I heard somebody talking about it. I think it was on the reverse sweep where they were talking about like the fact that they went from like year 1, they had like no identity. It looked like they were all over the place. They had 10 players. They didn't know who to play. There was just all this stuff about them. So like year 2 and 3 now, they're just completely changed. Like they have this really strong like team ethic. Like these guys are sitting there like doing breathing exercises before matches at LAN. Like they're very ahead of, like they remind me a lot of like Astralis with like the way they're doing all this extra stuff out of the game to be like mentally stronger in game. I love it personally. I think that's awesome. Like I always thought they do a really good job of signing good substitutes. Like obviously last year they did that with Insight. This year they got Hixie, who I'm very high on. Props to him as well. First off, like I hope Cammy, I hope you feel better. Obviously, really shitty situation, but take time, take some rest. I hope you come back 100% and you're doing way better today than you were on the weekend. To Hixie like showed a lot of like mental fortitude because he kind of got a little bit fried at map 1. Like he didn't do that hot. I feel kind of bad. He had a 0.78 and the hard point, but he ended that map strong. He ended strong, and then he just like completely just forgot about that map and did really well on maps 2 and 3. Like a little like fun fact. Obviously, I don't think he'll be eligible for the leaderboards unless he like plays more. But now he is number 1 in the league for opening duels 1 per round with 0.227, which doesn't sound like a lot, but he's basically winning. He's getting 1 first blood every 4 rounds he plays, which leads the league right now. He's just over a BZ, Octane, and Pred, who are tied for second. So that's pretty awesome. He got 3 first bloods within the 11 rounds he played, which is, fun fact, that's also more than Cammy and Insight have combined over the season so far. So he did a really, really good job. I do hope he gets a chance. I can definitely see him being one of those prospects that get traded if he's not able to start on Toronto. He could definitely be pretty good on other teams. So shout out them for just having one like good management to pick out really good substitutes, and 2 like having a team system that a substitute can come in and you're still 3-0ing a team no matter how close it is. They still finish out 3-2 in all 3 of them. I consider those clutch games. So they won 3 straight clutch games. Like that's ridiculous. That's good for them. So shout out Toronto, and I hope you guys keep going.
Yeah, an exciting time to be a European COD fan, really, with the way London and Toronto are looking right now. The other side of the coin for that final series is Florida. I think we should touch on them just because this team frustrates me as a content creator. It frustrates me because what I like this season in general is that pretty much every team has something interesting or someone interesting on it. All the teams have like, some of the teams last year, Los Angeles Guerrillas, for example, like if last year was LAG versus Paris or LAG versus Florida, it's like, who actually cares? This year, at least Los Angeles Guerrillas have interesting personalities, whereas this time on Florida, it's like the team is still the same, it's still boring, and they just lose. So it's like, what do you want me to say? They throw away tough situations. And yeah, I don't know, like decent team on paper, but again, yes, they can upset teams. Like they could have won the series against Thieves this week. They're up 2-1. Then they kind of got outplayed for the rest of the week. And even Paris, at least Paris have Temp, who's entertaining. Here we go. I don't know if welcome. Good morning. Lionman's here.
How are you?
Special guest. I don't know if it's on the screen yet or how Omar's got the setup going. But well, it's good. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm good. What's up?
You switched the camera around.
I did. I actually moved out of that last place at a new place now, and then going to be at a new place again soon. So
you're on the grind.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay. We are cracking on. We're talking about Florida right now, and I was racing them. Maybe I went a bit too hard. But
I mean, it's warranted.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My question was really, look, are they going to try and make some sort of move? I don't know what they're thinking here. They've got Yeez on the sub bench. Is that as good of a sub pick as Hixie was for Toronto? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Austin? And then Lion, you can just crack away, say whatever you want.
Yeah, so this Florida team, they're in a very tough spot. I don't really know where you go. Going into the year, I would have said yes, Yeez is good, but I feel like he's struggled in the amateur side right now. He had a 0.85 during the elite, and he didn't do too hot in the respawn modes. So to put him into a high pressure environment in Florida, because you would have expectations to get better right away, that might be a little bit rough. I would hope maybe they would give him a little bit more time to grow and I think learn some of the respawn a little bit better. For the Florida side though, it's very weird because I feel like Dav Patty actually had a really good week. He rebounded. He has a 1.07. 74% of his kills are untraded, so he actually got a lot better this week. So I don't know if, yeah, there you go. I don't know if he I don't know if he saved his roster spot per se, but like him and Awakening have been good. Skies, honestly, he has a 0.99 right now. Like he's not blowing the competition away like he has in the past. Vivid is doing okay. I would still be kind of harsh on him because he has a 0.9. He's doing well in hardpoint, but he has a 0.58 in S&D, and he's 5-12 in opening tools. That's just not good enough. You need to get more out of him in there, and he has a 0.81 in control. But to be fair, like control right now can be harder for SMGs to get going, but he is obviously struggling. So this Florida team, I just don't know how you fix that right away. I don't know what roster move you make, because you could. It's really weird because you basically have 3 AR players, even though Awakening is doing really well in the sub. Like I still think he's an AR player, or I think his ceiling is higher as that flex AR player. So like, do you drop Dav Patty and put Skies back on the main AR and put Awakening on the flex? Do you like what? I don't know what move you make to propel this team past where they're at right now, because they have actually really good gun skill. They're really good at like the ego chow, like heavy gameplay. It's just I don't know. It's just putting it all together. And sometimes like the coordination, like putting it all together at the same time, has always been an issue for them the last 2 years. They've always had really highlight plays in hardpoint, but then they fall apart. And especially like this year. This year they are struggling pretty heavily right now in S&D. The only positive player is Skies with a 1.09, but the rest of them are all negative. And again, Vivid has a 0.58, which is not actually close. So there's 3 people worse than him: Hydra with a 0.45, Neptune with a 0.57, and Cammy with a 0.5. And then him with a 0.58. So it's a little
not too bad.
Yeah, so they're struggling a little bit. So if they can improve their S&D, like they're good enough to be a good hardpoint team and steal maps. Do I think this team will ever be like consistently top 8? Maybe they're a piece away. It's really tough. I don't know. I really don't know, because you have a lot of actual talent there that I feel like you can move one of those players to a different team and they would do really, really well. But them as a 4 collective unit, I mean, maybe you give them more time to see if they can make that work.
Yeah, it just seems like they got pretty much the same issues they had last year. I don't know about the comms. Have we heard any listenings from them, and what do we think of those?
Yeah, we might have heard a bit. I mean, that's the thing that Neptune said last year, right? He was like, comms all over the place, bit of a mess. I don't know.
It just seems like in Respawn, their slaying is there. They just can't really win a map. And it's quite strange to watch. Like, what was the series where they all had like at least a 1, and then the opposing team had all 0.9s? What series was
I think
that?
Toronto this week. Did they not get out? Did Toronto not get outslayed for the win? I'm pretty sure they did.
So yeah, and every single map,
Every
could have
map they got
been,
outslayed or something.
and they got choked.
They
They
won.
choked every single map by 1 point, which is insane.
Yeah.
Case. But it just seems like they've got reoccurring issues from last season that they haven't fixed. And do you think that that's down to the individual players themselves, or do you think that that's how they work as a unit?
That's like their system. Like they're like known around the league. Like they are very aggressive, very ego chow, like just very fast on the map. And like sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. Like you see it in Toronto, like Toronto or London. Like London's adopted that play style currently. They are very F the rotation. We're just gonna break everything. We're gonna try to do it that way. It can work. When you get on one day and you're not shooting the best, if you're struggling that day, it's very hard to win when you're like that. So that's why I think like sometimes you see Florida come out, they're out slaying, they're pushing the map, they're being very aggressive. They're winning their ones, they're being just super aggressive all over the place. That's why you see like Vivid with like 90, he had 95 engagements one map. I'm sitting there going, what the hell? But is that a consistent method to win? And right now, I don't think it is. Is it a method to upset teams above you? Sure, but how consistent is that? It's just tough. Will that get you to the winners bracket, the major? It could, but is that going to win you the major? I'm not sure. It's just really tough. I do hope they figure it out because like all 4 of those guys have a lot of like gun skill, a lot of like talent. It's just sometimes like over the past year, I've started to realize you really do need that IGL to tie everything together and to keep the team cohesive. And it is pretty important to have on the map in the middle of a series. So maybe they are lacking that. I know that they said they were lacking that last year, and maybe that's the same issue they have this season.
I mean, it's possible they were lacking that in Modern Warfare as well, but the game played in a way that kind of promoted that sort of playstyle.
Shut up, Frosty.
Yeah.
I thought Frosty brought a lot more than people think. He's a very good communicator, and I think he was part of the glue that kept that team together. Like obviously there was other parts to that roster, but I feel like he was pretty undervalued to what he brought to that roster. And I feel like if he was still on this team today, for one of those players, I feel like they would be in a better position.
Let's talk about Los Angeles Guerrillas. Another team that, to me, it was kind of a good bounce back week for them. I mean, their first series, as we say, they got 3-0 by Toronto. Close affair, but couldn't quite make it happen. Their series against London, to me, was impressive because we knew how good London were looking going into that series. We'll talk about them here in a second. So it was a good bounce back. I mean, they won 2 very close maps, map 1 and 2, and then they closed out on Berlin, which I was particularly impressed by. Asim was the monster of this series, like no doubt about it. I think it's quite interesting, really, how the stats look for LEG right now. Like, I don't know how they look across the board, but I think most of us might have expected that, okay, it's probably going to be Hook and it's going to be maybe Gunless with Slasher just behind and then Asim stats-wise, but it's probably not looking like that. I mean, I guess we can have a look, but I mean, so far it seems to me that Asim has been taking over a lot of looking overall KDs is actually pretty much not exactly the opposite, but not far off what I was saying. Like Asim is almost leading the charge, which is very impressive, but I don't know if you can expect that to be that consistent. I don't know. Like I don't see Asim dropping a 1.09 for the rest of the year. Which, maybe creates a bit of a concern there. Obviously, he has been fantastic and he can just take over games and win you games, which is basically what he did in this series. He's really impressive, especially because this was kind of a backs against the wall series. I felt like Asim does really well in those situations. Like they pretty much had to win this to give themselves, to put themselves on solid ground to get winners bracket. And they basically did that. So they've showed glimpses of that potential that we saw, Austin, when this team was announced. But I don't think they've really quite cracked it yet. And I really want to see more from Hook, I think, and more from Slasher, really, which I think we'll get on LAN, which is why I still have a lot of faith in this team. But it's just, so I'm not sold,
Yeah, like I wasn't sold originally, but like I see them actually being a pretty consistent team the rest of the year. Right now in Hardpoint, they're all positive, and they're all like very positive. ASIM has a 1.1, Gunless with a 0.08, Hook has a 1.16, Flash a 1.09. Like they are very consistent, all four of them producing. I can see that continuing. Even in Control, they have a 1.17 by ASIM and a 1.14 by Gunless. Like hot take, I think ASIM is one of the most undervalued SMGs in the league right now. You can see that he got released by Minnesota, he got released by New York. It just seems like he is a very good player at doing the intangibles for a team and filling the the rotation player, the smart SMG that's doing everything he needs to around the map. I think, and you can see that as well. He has the highest percentage of non-traded kills by an SMG in the league. 74.7% of his kills are untraded, which means he's not like going in there hyper aggressive, getting one and getting traded right away. He's getting one, playing his life, being very smart. Honestly, I think New York probably regrets letting him go because the way that New York wants their SMGs to play with Crim and Clay right now, that's like ASIM to a T. Very smart and rotational heavy. He'll play the hill. He'll play very smart in the hill, but he'll also like do everything else around the map and just allow like Crim and Clay and the rest of the team to do really well. So I bet you New York probably is kicking themselves so they don't have ASIM. Maybe they aren't, but that's just like my 2 cents. And then the other thing is like I think this is Gunless's best game in a while. He's doing very, very well. Has a high Slayer rating, he's a 1.001. I believe he's positive in every single mode. Yeah, he has a 1.15 in S&D. He's 9-4, nine wins, 4 losses. He's 9 for 13 in opening duels. He's just doing very, very well, and I can actually see this team being a consistent like dark horse. Like I wouldn't say they're top 4, but I can see them being that fifth best team that kind of like you have to beat them to show that you can win championships. Like they're like that team that you have to get by to be at that upper echelon of teams.
Yeah, I just feel respawn wise they look good. I just think S&D might be their like not downfall, but the area they need to work on the most. I'm just looking at their data.
Data.
Yeah,
I like
the
that.
only player that seems to be dropping a low KD in S&D is ASIM. And that's actually quite surprising.
I think he's being the bomb biatch right now. I feel like he's just being baited,
Send him in.
which is fine. I feel like if he's doing the job of planting, which I actually don't know how many plants he has.
He has 15.
Yeah, so that for me that's acceptable. That's like the Bance rule. Then that's like I run in, I get bombed down. You're basically winning the game. If you get bombed down in this game right now, you're winning the round.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Sure. Yeah, I don't really have that much to add on LAG, to be honest. Not a team I'm keeping my focus on.
That's fair enough. Let's talk London then. I mean, they played London this week. I called London to beat Minnesota, as I was surprised with most people actually, at least in our predictions. And I think everyone took them to beat LAG, which didn't happen. But beating Minnesota, I was pretty confident here. But I was incredibly impressed because Minnesota are a team that they're kind of a Toronto in a way that they don't have a particularly low floor. Like they're always going to be solid. So I was just surprised that London pretty much just bowled them over map 1 and 2. I mean, game 1 wasn't even close. Game 2 was a 6-2 in search, and it looked like it was going to be another 45-minute series. Didn't work out like that. Minnesota win the game 3, and then London close out a pretty tight game 4. But again, like that was just another London series where they come out against a good team and beat them in like an hour, which just shows like there's so much potential on the London team. Zero really came to play this week as well. So far, we didn't see all that much from Zero. He had a couple of great highlight moments in the search and the respawns as well. And when he's playing well, in addition to the rest of the guys, I mean, Gizmo also had another crazy series against Minnesota. And by that point, they'd done enough. They were 3-0. They'd qualified for winners bracket. So, maybe they let their foot off a little bit off the gas when they came against LAG. But still, even then against LAG, I kind of felt like they were it felt like a lot like the OpTic series that London played, where they were down 2-0 in 2 close maps. They lost to OpTic, and then they brought it back 3-2. I thought they were going to do the same thing, but kind of surprised they lost that Berlin hardpoint, but a team took over. So I just think London is a team you really don't want to face right now. Like, they're kind of a team, it's almost, I mean, obviously they're similar to Seattle, but it reminds me really of what people think that Florida are, in that people think, okay, Florida, a bit of a, banana skin team. If they really turn up and go on all cylinders, they're going to take you down. But London actually seems to be able to do that on a consistent basis, at least so far. So exciting time to be a European fan. I can, very reasonably see one of Toronto or London being in the grand finals of this major. What do you think, Austin?
Yeah, I think they're very, very good. I just wonder what tweaks they're going to continue making to their play style. Because like right now they have the lowest rotational percentage in the CDL, which means they are not rotating at all and just solely relying on breaks, which can get you it can get you by in the first like couple months of the season. But once teams start learning how to hold and push out, you're gonna have to adapt that play style a little bit. So I'm a little bit worried for their hard point. Like that's the only thing. But they have the skill to change that. I feel like right now they're just taking advantage of that. The low hold percentage by a bunch of these teams. S&D, again, like they are doing phenomenal. They are getting about 60% of the first bloods. Every single one of their players has higher than 50%. Their lowest player has 53% opening duel win percentage. So that's amazing. They're basically playing almost every round. A lot of these rounds, 4v3, which gives them, all the time in the world to win these. So, and then in control, right now they're just really being powered by Gizmo and Afro. Gizmo is a 1.28 and Afro is a 1.22. Gizmo is one of the only players I think I've seen had that much success on offense. In control, he has a 1.32. The only other player that's close to him is Asum with a 1.29 on the attacking side. It's very hard to get that number right now, and they're both killing it. Yeah, so I actually have high hopes for them, and a lot of people are saying like looking at Zero. I don't think you should look at Zero for this team if they start having hiccups. He brings a lot of leadership to this team, to these young guys. He's teaching them a lot. He has a 1.0 right now, but 76% of his kills are untraded, and he's doing fairly. He's doing what he has to across all 3 modes. It's like the Lamar like role where you might not have the best individual numbers, but you're doing so much that make the other star players do better on your team that the star players won't be able to do as well if you weren't there filling the gaps and making the game easier for them. So sometimes like if they start, falling off a little bit, I want to see like is maybe one of their star players falling off and that's what's making Trey look more out of place, or is it Trey doing that? Like there's a lot of questions. But right now I actually think they're probably going to end this stage 4-1, I would guess, and I really want to see how they do on land. Like this is probably the team I'm most excited for to see, because I actually really like all 4 of them. Like obviously I had Trey on my team at one point. I like Nasty, Gizmo, and Afro. They are phenomenal. They are the next EU youngsters to come up. So I'm really excited to see how they do. Really excited.
Yeah, I love that this season the international talent seems to be really showing. So you got Toronto, obviously, London looking great, and then you got Pred as well. And I'm just wondering if these teams in the league are going to search these regions challenges more strictly. Like the EU, there's probably a lot more players in EU who could come into this league and be effective, and ANZ, but they're not getting the same spotlight. But yeah, I'm really proud of this London team to come in. How many of them are rookies this year? Is it 3? 2.
I guess 2 technically, but even then, Afro, like, do you really consider last year Afro's rookie year? Because he only really played for a stage or 2.
Like, he played stage 5 in champs.
Yeah, stage 5 in champs only. Like, I don't know if that's enough to call. I don't know.
He played stage 4 though, didn't he?
Came in at the end of right after stage 4.
But it's like he didn't play enough last year. This is what I would say, just real quick. I don't think he played enough last year. If he'd have played like that all year, and maybe they do better, I don't know. Like, he could have been in contention for Rookie of the Year, whereas because he was so late, he was never in contention for it. So I think you could argue that he could be in the conversation again.
But, well, I don't think they'll be the case. But
I agree.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this team because. Sorry.
Yeah, I said it's tough because he's still disgusting.
Yeah,
he's the most exciting player. I love watching him on that team.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Absolutely. I mean, so the next two teams we want to talk about only played once. I think so, actually. I'm not sure. Maybe Paris was 0-2. I actually think they might have been 0-2. They lost to Boston. But yeah, OpTic played Paris. Big series for OpTic. Of course, massive series from them. They needed to win this one. If they lost this one, I was convinced that this team's chalked. Like, maybe not immediately, but down the line. Especially the way Paris were looking. And yeah, OpTic, this was the perfect time for them to get a nice series under their belt. Comfortable 3-0. If they hadn't have 3-0'd them, if it was a tight one, then there would have been some questions. Because Paris seemed to just be on a, the stock graph that's going up, but one that's going down, right? It's just, they started off pretty good, and then since then, it's just a straight downward trajectory, as Ben Janessine would say, which is pretty sad to see. Safe Donny Temp. But still, I mean, look, OpTic won the series confidently, 3-0, good in all modes. I was especially impressed, I think, by their Search and Destroy adaptation, because they won game 3 and game 1 and game 3 relatively comfortably. The game 2, they were down 2-0 on Berlin, and that kind of can be the time for OpTic where, okay, 2-0, like we gotta bounce back into this. But I think just when OpTic win game 1, we felt it last year as well. They just have a bit of confidence behind them that they're going to be able to make the adaptations necessary. And then after they go down 2-0, I think they go 6-1 in the next 7 rounds to win that game. So I thought that was generally quite impressive. There has been some talk about the leadership, right? Because Scump said after the fact exactly what they were doing on the leadership front, that yes, like everyone was chiming in, but in the series that they lost, like when the moments got hectic, the fact that there was like everyone chiming in was actually overwhelming their comms. And then Illy said in kind of an interview after the fact that he's getting more and more confident in his own leadership and making the big calls in big moments, which, look, we haven't seen yet. That's kind of the question to this series. I would have kind of liked to see if like the search went to round 11 or the control went to round 5, just to see if OpTic can again cope in those type of situations, because against Toronto, I don't think they're going to have an easy time. Toronto don't get 3-0'd generally, so it's one of those series where if OpTic want to beat them, they're probably going to have to take them the distance, and that means close games, and that means good comms under pressure, which OpTic haven't had to deliver this week against Paris. So I think that's still a question mark which is there. The Search and Destroy as well is still a question, because we know that Toronto are very solid in that mode, as they are in all modes. The other side of the coin is Paris. I mean, look, we know they've been trying hard, they've been doing their thing, they're still 0-4. I don't even know if these guys are going to bother making a move, to be honest, Austin, but it just gets more frustrating by the day. I thought at least they would have like one upset by now. And maybe they will get an upset at some point, but it's just so depressing.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was thinking about this the other day. Paris has hired more coaches in the last 3 years than OpTic in the Dallas had combined. Like, they've actually had quite a lot of coaches.
Josh
and OpTic
now.
They have Theory, Apox, and they have JP Digits. So that's 5. And if you add up OpTic in Dallas, they've actually only had Troy, Ray, I guess you can include Mutex, and Pac. And they got rid of Mutex and Pac, obviously. So they've only had 4. So that was just like, I wish they would do that for their players. Is like, they had Novus too, so that's 6. I always forget he was on Paris year 1. So they've had 3 coaches for two out of the 3 years. So hopefully, maybe they'll invest. I know the way the contracts work this year is differently, so maybe they can invest into players more in the middle of the season, making those adjustments mid-season. Obviously, Fellow and Desi have really struggled. I would say those two. I mean, John hasn't really been that good either. Temp has been pretty well. Temp has been pretty well, done pretty well. So like maybe they keep him and upgrade around him. I'm not sure exactly, but I do feel bad for these guys, because they are they scrim a lot, they play a lot of 8s, they do a lot of S&D, they do a lot of like 3 set days, so like they are playing a lot. It's not like in the past where they just weren't, like, not saying these players, but in the past when teams were bad, they're just not playing a lot. Like these teams are actually playing a lot right now, so it does suck to see like their work isn't paying off. It does suck, but I do hope, like, look, if you don't win a match this stage, I feel like you got to make a change. But I do hope they maybe like upset a team or two. I would like to see them not go 0 for 6 in the first stage.
It's
Are
gonna
you done?
happen.
Yeah.
Go on, like.
Weren't we starting with OpTic, or is this Paris now?
Well, you talk about what you want.
Yeah, I just looked at the stats. You were right, Austin. It's the temp show, apart from in Search and Destroy, where he's got a 0.65.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this team, it's kind of hard because they don't look like they could win a series at all. And for an Optics case, I don't see this as being like a bounce back week at all, because they played against a team where we don't even know if they can win. So that's kind of sad. But I think it's good for Optic because confidence wise, they needed to get a win under their belt. They needed to get on the board. So that's good. But with Paris, I think you're right, Austin. They shouldn't make a move. But if they go 0-6, what can they really do? If we look at the outliers, it seems like Fellow is having a really tough time in everything other than control. He's got a 1.04 in control, but then in search, he's got a 0.6, and in hardpoint, a 0.8. But then again, like, how could you even like break down this team if all of them aren't slaying? It makes it harder for the people they're playing with. So I just think, I don't know, what would you do in this situation, Austin? Would you pick up a player from challenges, like jump into that pool of players before other teams to try and get the best talent possible? Or do you think those players in challenges won't join Paris because of where they're at right now, kind of like with Seattle Surge last year?
I feel like if you're doing a one-person swap, you're not going to get much interest. If you replace two of these players, like let's say you keep Fellow and Temp, you get like Ojani and damn, let me bring up the NA again because there is some good NA players right now because Paris is going to target NA. Maybe Ojani and Havoc. Actually, Havoc. Let me touch on that. Havoc is frying. That guy is absolutely frying right now. A 1.18 so far during the elite. He has a 1.21 in hardpoint. He is absolutely doing killer. So I think if you bring in Johnny and Havoc, and try it that way, you'll get more interest in this just doing a 1-for-1 swap. I could see them doing that. Maybe Johnny and Desi, or John and Desi, you kind of like experiment, see if Johnny and Havoc come in and can do something. Because Fellow's a weird player. Because like
Johnny and John, I want that duo.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Fellow's a weird player because like I feel like he does really really well in scrims, and it's just he just has to put that together in the matches. And I don't know. I feel like he has been underperforming, so he could definitely also get the sub out. So I feel like it's going to be tough to recruit players if you're only doing a 1-for-1, but if you're making multiple changes, it'll be easier for you to recruit players because you're bringing in other hungry players as well that aren't maybe have their confidence a little bit lower. So who knows? It is Paris, so history has shown us they might not make moves until it's too late. So let's maybe hope they do.
Yeah, but when they made moves last year, it never really changed anything. They got worse the entire year. They started out kind of hot in stage one, and then gradually, if you look at their record, it got worse at literally every stage, even with the changes. Yeah,
Did they
I think
ever bring
so.
in more than one player, or was it always 1-for-1s? I can't remember.
I think it was always 1-for-1s because they started out with. Wait, did they start with? Okay, it was 540, obviously. And then it was towards the end they brought Zaptius in. Did they bring in 2-for-1 when they brought in Temp? No, I think they brought Temp in when the Los Angeles Thieves thing happened, and then they brought in Zaptius maybe later. I don't think that was at the same time necessarily. But I think that's just what they do. And of course, Theory's their sub, so it just sets the tone, doesn't it?
I just don't think 1-for-1 changes change much if the system isn't working and if the slaying isn't working. I think you just need to overhaul stuff. Now, if Paris needs that, obviously I'm not going to say that. You guys can be blunt with it. I'm just going to say like maybe they should if they don't find success in stage one, because this year there's only 4 stages and then champs. Obviously the Pro-Am doesn't give you CDL points, I don't believe. So you only have 4 stages. So at the end of this major, we're 25% of the way done through the regular season. And if you don't think you can win and earn points during the final 3 stages, you either have to wave the white flag or make changes. So that's just my 2 cents. Like there is I can say there is a good bunch of people in the challenger side right now for on the NA side. You know, Zinx on the AR, Gravity on the AR, Jimbo, Havoc, Johnny. I can't believe this name hasn't been brought up yet. Brezzy. Brezzy is frying as well. First off, hold on. New York, Brezzy is frying. He's NNA. He's French. What are we doing?
What are we doing?
I didn't hear that name once.
That's a good point, actually.
He's actually doing very, very well with Texas Nation. So
that's his champs. Black Ops 4.
Yeah. So there is actually, I feel like there is a lot of talent right now. Whereas Paris wanted to go, you know, look around in the market. They would be able, like currently right now, there's a lot of people that they can get the step up on and get them first if they make a move, you know. But it is tough to make that move.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, Lion?
Nah, just pray for him.
I think that's about right. Los Angeles Thieves, they had an interesting week. They were 2-0. They got the results they needed. Well, who did they play real quick? So firstly, they beat New York. We'll talk about them in a second. And then they beat Florida in a interesting series where they were down 2-1. Lots of talk about control, the fact that, you know, because it's kills that determines round 5, they did better on their offenses, but still got offense round 5. Unlucky. They still win the game 4. They almost got full sailed game 5. I actually thought it was going to happen. It was like 5-0. Then it got to 5-4. And then they just about got over the line. So that was a little bit concerning for Los Angeles Thieves, that they kind of let that one get away from them a little bit. They got the result they needed this week. They still looked, I think, a little bit vulnerable. My perspective is, Austin, that like I expect more from these guys when it gets to LAN. I think that they probably consider these online games as kind of, okay, let's just do enough to get over the line, to get to winners. And I think they find themselves in a decent spot now because they're 2-1 with the 7 and 6 map counts. And this week they will play up against Paris and Ultra. So they should at least have 3 wins there. So they should be good enough for winners. So yeah, I think they're probably a team that's going to try and do enough and then turn up on LAN. I think that's what I think about, especially from Los Angeles. Still, Envoy had, I think, was it Envoy that really impressed me this week? I think it was in general. It had some really great moments, which I was impressed at because a lot of people said going into this year and last year, like, okay, can Envoy do it in 4v4 as he has done in 5v5? Can he, like, you know, for example, Modern Warfare was a monster, right? And it was like, okay, was that because of the way the game was played or was that because it was 5v5? I think he's kind of shown so far that it's just because these type of games with the fast time skill, he seems to really excel at, Austin.
Yeah, I think Envoy's done an amazing job this season. Like, he may not have the highest KD. Like right now, he has a 1.08, which is the highest in LA Thieves. But he's actually doing an amazing job right now on the map. He's making a lot of smart plays. His Slayer rating is a 91.37, which is one of the highest in the league. So he's doing a lot of good work for LA Thieves right now, doing a very good job. The only thing I would say is his S&D is a little bit lackluster. It's a 0.7. He's not finding much damage in round. He's only getting 69 damage per round. He's only winning 47% of his opening duels. So he's not doing a lot in that aspect. So if we can see him, turn it around, it would be great in that mode. But in the respawn modes, frying, doing a great job. He also has six clutches actually, which is tied for second in the league. So he's also doing that for S&D. So even when he's struggling in a mode, he's still doing something really well. So hopefully, this LA Thieves team continues to grow because they are very good at hardpoint. I would say one of the best at hardpoint, and they have a lot of potential to be a very good S&D team because I think Draza and Envoy are just very, very good S&G. So hopefully they continue to grow because I actually like this team. I like this team a lot.
Yeah, I think this online group play, I don't think it really can give a full picture of how they're doing because on LAN in the first kickoff classic they looked really strong. So I can imagine that in that situation they're going to be really good. But what do you think their biggest weaknesses right now, Austin?
S&D.
Yeah.
Which is tough because I think they're a very good. I think they're okay control team. I think they're a very good hardpoint team, and I think their S&D has struggled. But I feel like there's a lot of optimism the way they play. It's not like they're like a horrible S&D team. I think they're a good S&D team that just needs to clean up some things, right? I think there's a solid foundation. You just have to clean up a couple of different things on a couple of different maps, build out that map pool, and I feel like they'll get better. But right now, I think that's probably their weakest mode out of the three.
Yeah, it's really tough with this season because it's so tightly packed in that top 9 that even the smallest weakness is going to get exposed. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's only the teams that are really strong in each mode, like FaZe, Seattle, Ultra, and then Ravens to an extent, and maybe Breach.
I get like right now, the reason I hate the way our map pools are right now, I still can't believe we only started with 4 maps in Hardpoint and S&D and 2 in Control, because right now the way the maps work is who cares about your map pool? Like you just don't have to develop a map pool right now. Like all these like the bad teams in certain modes, you don't have to put the work in. You can just have 1 or 2 good maps, and the vetoes just allow you to get away with it, which is just completely, I don't know. I feel like that's stupid. Like right now, like Control is such a 50-50 because it's literally decided by the coin flip of who gets to veto it, right? And Hardpoint, like you can have multiple auto vetoes right now. It's so weird to me that we only started with 4 in each mode, because now it's just you're allowing teams that historically just don't have good map pools to get away with it, and you're the good teams like the LA Thieves and Hardpoint, like us in Toronto and S&D and Control, the teams that put in a lot of work to expand their map pool, you don't get rewarded with the current map pool in this game, which sucks. That's the one thing I do hope they fix.
Yeah.
Hopefully for stage 2 they can sort something out. Casablanca, I know Silly Sausage said, like new maps. Gondola's chalked. Casablanca, maybe not for Hardpoint, maybe for Search, Austin. I don't know. Kenny said it's probably chalked, but he reckoned maybe Search, maybe Control.
I think Search and Control could work personally, but we're also not like highly play testing it until after the major. So like,
yeah, that's fair enough.
If that can work, I mean, shit. I'm gonna say it again. I think we should be forced to have 5, 5, and 3. And just, I mean, even if it's shitty, yeah, it's just we've had shitty maps in the past before being the map pool just because we got to have enough. I just don't like how like this year there's an exception. I mean, obviously, again, we have been dealt a very tough hand on the map pool side. There's 20 maps, and right now, ideally, we have 4. But it's gonna start growing stale on the broadcast side too. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're not gonna want to watch
Stage 2 and beyond.
You're not gonna want to watch Tuscan, Berlin, every single series. Like, you're just not gonna.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like Arden's Forest again. So hopefully that does switch up, and relatively soon.
Yeah, Arden, Docs, cracking stuff.
Yeah,
good.
But those maps should be in this game. Just put them in.
Please.
And even they got boring.
Even if they're not reskinned, just as they are, put them in. Looks shitty. I don't care.
I'll take anything at this point.
Just give us something. Arden was my map, Loki. Let's talk about New York. They played 1 game this week. They, of course, made the blockbuster roster change of Bench and Neptune. Some would say too early. They bring in Royalty. And we talked about it a little bit last week about the change, but there's a few things that have obviously come out since. They lose their match this week. They played up against Thieves, obviously. They lost 3-1. They looked maybe slightly better in this series than they had done before. Still the same problems cropped up. The slaying wasn't really existing. Game 1, Royalty got smoked, but you can't really blame him because he was on 80 ping from Canada. So, but it just makes me think, like, okay, you don't want to blame Royalty, fair enough, but you can blame the team because they made the call to pick up Royalty knowing he was in Canada on 80 ping. And who knows if they can even get a visa. Like, we know that Acima trolls a visa last year, and it's only like 2.5 weeks until the major. Am I confident they're going to get Royalty out there for the major? No. I'd give it a less than 50% chance, certainly. So that's like, what are you thinking? This reminds me of when Dallas Empire last year, who got dropped, and they wanted to get Clay. They eventually got Vivid, and they brought in Fellow from the bench for a little bit of time. And everyone knew that that was not a roster that was going to last, and it was going to be a temporary fix until they get the player they wanted. This seems like the same thing to me. I just can't see that Royalties, unless they just drastically improve, I can't see Royalty being in this team in another month. Which then makes you think, okay, so if they're going to cycle another player into this 4th spot, who's it going to be? Is it going to be a Johnny? Is it going to be a Brezzy, right? Another good option. Are they going to try that? I think what they'll do is they'll give that another go. They'll say, okay, didn't work with Royalty. Let's try someone else. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe let them go rogue. I don't know what they're going to try. But I think they're confident that Crimclay Hydra is going to work as a trio. I think they'll give it one more go with a different player. And then if that doesn't work, which it may do, but if that doesn't work, then you've got to think, okay, well, the core three, maybe that isn't working right. Like, what fourth player works with Hydra, Crim, and Clayster in a 4v4 game when slaying is crucial and Crim and Clay aren't slaying as they have done? It's tough. Hydra and Neptune, in theory, they get a lot of kills. It should be fine. Didn't work in reality. At least it didn't work in reality in the system that Crim and Clay wanted to impose. There's been some talk from Neptune that he was kind of forced into playing, basically just sit in the hardpoint and pick up the time, which effectively we saw in the stats because he had crazy low engagements, which was a surprise. And some people were saying, okay, they should just let him go rogue with Hydra. That's the play. Maybe they bring him back. I don't know. But it just makes me think this team either didn't think this through enough or didn't consider the options here as to exactly what they've done, because I kind of feel bad for Royalty thrust into this spot because he's between a rock and a hard place in a team that seems to be failing, frankly. And I don't know exactly what you do to fix it and whether Crim and Clay as a duo really working 4v4. There's been a lot of talk about that already. I think these guys can figure it out. I think Clayster knows individually he hasn't performed. If he steps up his game, then I think the team might become on a different path. But they have to do so quick because these guys are winners. They made this change early for a reason because they didn't think the former team could win. And if it's still not winning, as you say, we're already, after this week of matches, 25% of the way through the regular season scheduled games. So that's a big deal, and they're not going to hesitate making other moves, Austin, I don't think. So, I don't know. It just seems like a shambles over there right now.
Yeah, I don't really, same as last week. I don't really got much to say. You picked up a player that, I like Royalty. I don't think he's going to revamp this roster. I think he's in a super tough spot where it's just, basically, I feel bad for him because you're just not going to you don't really got many lemons to make lemonades right now. They're being outslayed by over 100 in hardpoint over 3 series. I don't even know how that's possible. Their SMGs have a combined 0.5 in S&D. I don't think I've ever seen Hydra had a 0.45 in any mode. He's a 0.45 in S&D over 28 rounds. That's extremely rough. Crim's look decent. He has a 1.28, but when your SMGs are just getting Kentucky fried, I don't really know what you got on that side of the map. Control, they look kind of lost. Again, they're getting outslayed by 50. So they're getting outslayed by over 150 in the 2 respawn modes. Until further notice, I just don't know what you put too much stock in. You're not getting a lot of engagements on your SMGs in control as well. Their SMGs are really slow. Neptune Royalty had 56 in his one control map, so maybe that can turn it around. But I feel like you got to get Hydra a little bit faster. You got to get Crim and Clay slaying in that mode, and you'll pick it up. Because right now, I feel like Hydra's going to be really good in control at some point. Because this is the way that game mode plays out. It just fits him so heavily. You just got to get everyone around him going, and he'll feed off of that. He'll be disgusting. And I don't really. I guess I have to do a little deep dive on their S&D because, Neptune had a 0.57 and Hydra has a 0.45. I've never seen numbers that low before. So I got to do a little deep dive to see what just went wrong with those two, because that's just crazy. But I don't know. It's really tough to find positives when. Clearly they're underpracticed. Clearly they're they're behind the ball. Clay has a 0.69 in hardpoint. It's really tough. I guess Royalty has a 0.63. It's not much, but it's just I just don't know where you just got to go back from the beginning, restart, define the fundamentals you like, because there's so much talent on this team. You just got to find a way to make it work together. Because clearly, right now, you're getting outslayed so heavily, you're just not giving yourself a chance to win these maps. You got to go back, find ways to start building kills, finding momentum. Obviously, their confidence is probably at an all-time low right now. You have to rebuild that confidence and just obviously this stage, I would say, is chalked. At this point, you just got to start finding ways to rebuild your confidence for stage 2. Whether that's upsetting a team at the major, making that small little push through the lower bracket. You just got to find a way to get that momentum back, because each one of the players, I mean, Hydra is decent, doing pretty good in hardpoint. Crim and Clay are doing pretty decent in S&D. Same with Royalty. Royalty actually did really good as well in that. But right now, like, no one's doing good in control. So it's like, where do you just got to find consistency through mode to mode to mode, map to map. Like, if you ask me what their map pool is right now, I wouldn't be able to, like, I don't know what is a good map for them. I can't even tell you. It's just tough. But there's no way this team has 3 coaches who are all really smart. They have Crim and Clay, they have Hydra, and you know, Royalty's in there right now with high ping. I want to see how he does when he's actually in Texas, because he's going to be in Texas soon, I believe, or he'll be at the LAN. Maybe they can do well to close out this stage, bring back that confidence, because I feel like confidence is pretty key, especially in this game. If you think you're dog shit, you're going to be dog shit. So you got to rebuild that up and stop getting outslayed so heavily. You're just not going to give yourself a chance to win games.
Yeah, I think the perfect player, and you said it earlier, for that 4th spot would be Asim. Just what he brings to the table, everything, the intangibles. He's just the perfect player. And it kind of seems like Clay tried to mold Neptune into that same sort of dynamic, but clearly didn't work. But this is an interesting fact. There are only 2 teams in the league that have 3 pros from AW. And can you guess what teams they are?
3 pros from AW. Okay.
New York.
Yeah.
Well, I guess LA Thieves, I wanted to say, but I don't know if Octane played. Yeah, Octane probably did play.
Octane did, but Kenny and Envoy were
Kenny and
the last event, so it doesn't really count.
Okay, it doesn't count. Okay, I thought I'd sniped one there.
It's got to be Paris, right?
Yeah.
You've done bloody hell. I didn't even look that far down the standings. Yeah, Paris.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I see where you're going with this fun stat. They're bottom of the league.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, you know, that could be something to unpack. But yeah, because the rest of the league is very young. And it seems like there's all these cracked players. And it's possible that times have just changed. But who knows? There's still a long story to go this year.
There's plenty of time to go.
Funny breakdown. But the only 2 teams with no points are 3 AW pros.
It's 0-0. So let's talk about this week. We've got some great matches coming up. I don't know if you want to bring these up on stream, Omar. I've got them. You can find them in the chat line a little bit further up. I think what we'll do again is we'll pick out some matches that, if you don't have the 3-man version ready, it's okay. We can talk about some of the matches that are key ones, or at least on paper will be pretty exciting. And then we'll just kind of talk about who we think is going to get top 8. So on the Friday, we've got Thieves versus Legion, then Paris, Minnesota, then FaZe, Minnesota, then Ultra OpTic. To me, Ultra OpTic's the key one. I think the other 2 series should be relatively comfortable for Thieves and FaZe respectively. Ultra go into this series, I think, as favourites, but Ultra are in a kind of interesting spot, because right now Ultra are 2-1 with an 8-3 map count. So you'd think they'd be okay for winners kind of regardless, but their second series I don't think is the easiest one. They play Thieves later in the week. So Ultra kind of have a hard time, and I don't know if Cammy's going to play here. And also if Cammy's been out of practice for a few days, then maybe that makes them somewhat under practice. So I think that this is kind of when you want to face Ultra if you're OpTic. I think that they'll put up very strong resistance here. I can honestly see OpTic taking this series. I have a hard time calling this one. I think it's honestly kind of a 50-50, but Ultra just so far have shown more in terms of closing out the close games. I don't know what you think about this series, Austin.
I think OpTic's in a better spot than they were 2 weeks ago, but I just think Toronto's too good. If Cammy's there, I feel like it's a 3-0. That's no. I think it would be close, but like right now, like what mode are you going to give OpTic? Like, I feel like Toronto's better in control and S&D, and if you look at the map pools, I mean, I just feel like if Toronto can get a halfway decent map for map 1, it's probably going to be a 3-0, 3-1, and that's not a shot at OpTic, because I think OpTic are getting a little bit better. They're finding their confidence again and their leadership style that they want. I just feel like this is just a very tough matchup that you're going to have. Everyone has one per stage that you just got to make the best of what you have. If OpTic does bring this to like a map 5 or even beats them, I mean, they could literally beat them with how close close they can be. But if they make this series close, I think that says a lot about OpTic. I think I would be very, as a fan, if I were a fan, if you bring this to like a map 5, if you bring this close, I'd be very happy with the progress they've made over the last 2 weeks, because it means they're growing. It means they're getting a lot better. So that's what I would be looking for.
Are we just talking about this OpTic Toronto series?
Yeah, touch on this one for now. We can talk other series in a second.
Because this whole week is stacked. It's actually crazy. They've definitely planned this week to be the best one. Right. But from that series, I don't know. I just don't see it, especially if Cammy's there. I don't see it going great for OpTic, because all we've seen is OpTic beat Paris. The rest of the time, they've had close series, but kind of choked in that. I had to really think about it. I think it's going to be a 3-1 to Toronto. I can see OpTic pulling the first respawn, but I just can't see them beating them on any other map, honestly. And I've got no more to say on that. Like, it's just, it doesn't, yeah.
I mean, if you just look at map pools, it's just a really tough situation, because I just think Toronto is ahead of them in S&D and control, so I wouldn't really look at that. But when you look at map pools for Hardpoint, I'm going to go to Texas right now. Let's see. That's not right. That goes to Florida. But regardless, I don't think right now those two have the best matchups. It will probably be what? You'd probably see Berlin get vetoed, and probably, I would probably say Texas, or no, probably OpTic would veto Gavutu. You'd probably get Tuscan and Bocage, which I'm pretty sure Toronto would love that map set, especially if you get Bocage map 1 or Tuscan map 1. I just don't. I don't know. I just feel like this is a tall task for OpTic this early in the game right now when they've been struggling. Obviously, I still think they're a great team. I feel like they're going to rebound, but this is just a tough test for, their first match of the third week for them.
I agree. Yeah. It's not ideal. Do you guys want to pick out a couple of matches to just touch on for the rest of the week? Because there's obviously some that have quite some importance. Surge Ravens stands out to me, but what do you think, Lion?
Okay, I think that FaZe Minnesota series is going to be closer than people expect, just because of Minnesota's prowess in S&D. I think that Seattle versus Florida series is going to be closer than people think. Boston versus New York is like a classic rivalry. That would be pretty cool. LA Toronto, I think will be awesome. Obviously, Ravens versus Seattle is going to be key.
That whole Sunday, honestly.
Yeah, the Sunday's sick. I think if I was going to pick a matchup that I'm most excited for, it's probably OpTic versus Boston Breach, because that's there's been this weird storyline going on about how OpTic didn't want to give them views and all this, even though that wasn't the real reason.
About that.
But yeah, I'm excited for that match because they kind of seem on level pegging right now. I think Boston's record's a little bit inflated. And then OpTic's is obviously pretty shocking right now. So I think that series is key for seeding as well as anything.
That's going to be a hugely important series, I think. Is there any particular series you want to touch on, Austin?
I mean, basically that whole Sunday. Like, that whole Sunday is pretty stacked. London, Seattle, I'll let you touch on that one, but the Boston, Texas one, you pretty much can't start in winners if you go 2 and 3. You would have some weird funky tiebreakers. Obviously, if you go to the CDL site right now, they have the tiebreakers below the standings. I actually forgot to bring that up earlier. And the tiebreaker, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head match win percentage. So right now, you would have to.
Okay.
Yeah, like Minnesota has a tiebreaker versus Texas, and
that's pretty big actually.
Did LAG beat Texas too?
No, not yet. They haven't played. It was London that beat OpTic.
Okay, so right now, like, obviously Florida, New York, and Paris have 3 or 4 losses, so that's okay. If LAG goes 2 and 3 and OpTic went out, that's how they would make it in. But if OpTic fall to, if Minnesota goes 1 and 4, like if they drop these 2 matches, you can make it in as well. But if you lose to either their first match versus Toronto, which I mean, we just all predicted that Toronto's probably going to win that. So if you lose that, you pretty much it's a must win versus Boston for any chance to make it out of winner's bracket. And I think Boston will probably be somewhat in the same scenario. I feel like they'll be kind of close, so they'll want to win that as well. And
Boston
that
playing New York on day 2 though. So like if Boston win that, they'll be 3-1, at which point they'll have qualified. So,
but you also
maybe
don't want to
they'll
be
freeze
like
off the gas, but I don't know.
You also don't want to be like 5th, 6th, 7th, because that would then you would get us, Seattle, or Toronto, or like whoever else finishes high. So you actually want to get that 4th win versus Texas. So you get theoretically an easier matchup in the first round. So that's why I think they won't put their foot off the gas, because I don't think you'll necessarily do that. If anything, maybe they'll practice on their weaker maps versus Texas. But I still think Boston is a way better S&D team at this current moment, and that gives them an advantage in that series. So I honestly want to see how OpTic, one gets better at their play calling in S&D. Obviously, you saw a lot of good things in that Paris series with their play calling mid S&D. I want to see if that continues. And then 2, if you can beat a team you're supposed to beat, because that's probably arguably people would say Boston is a team that Texas should be beating. So let's see if they can turn that corner and beat a team they should beat.
Yeah, there was that one series. The Surge Ravens one I'm really excited for, just because we saw that on LAN right at the kickoff where Surge just bodied them. But I feel like London may have turned a slight corner since then. And in fairness, Surge are 3-0, but it hasn't been. They haven't looked like dominant, I don't think, by any means. Like they had a couple sketchy games, but especially the one against Minnesota, right, where Accuracy had to clutch the game 5 round 11. Like there's been a couple of games where Surge have felt a little bit vulnerable. So I'm excited to see what Ravens can do against them, whether they can shut down Seattle for their first loss of the regular season here. And I think the final thing we'll do really is just predict which 8 teams are going to get to winners. So I think it's a relatively safe prediction to say that New York and Paris and probably Minnesota, or not Minnesota, sorry, Florida aren't going to make it, because Florida right now 1-3. I guess they could make it, right, Austin? Like there's a world in which I guess they do with tiebreakers.
Only one 3-loss team will pretty much make it out.
They play Surge, which isn't great. Oh, is that how it works? Pretty much. Only one team with 3 losses make it through. Okay,
it would be really tough.
Yeah, so probably Florida are chalked. They also play Surge, which they might have to win that comfortably for the map count implications. As I say, it's incredibly tough to predict how this comes down in terms of the tiebreakers, because you've got head-to-head match win, then you've got and then if everything is tied and map win losses tied as well, then it goes to strength of schedule, I think, at least in terms of the rule set. So what it does, let's say you're tied, let's say FaZe and Surge both win their series.
That's the 5th tiebreaker.
Yeah, but okay, so someone was saying on Reddit today, let's say FaZe and Surge both win their series or something, and they're both 5-0. They didn't play each other, and their map win loss is identical, because right now it's identical. Then it goes to, but let's say maps is the same, and you guys didn't play each other, so there's no tiebreaker there. Then it goes to strength of schedule, so then it looks at who FaZe and Surge played and where they placed, I think. And then based on that, that's what does the tiebreaker. So it gets very hectic.
If that is the same too, my favorite tiebreaker, you know what it is? It's the final one. Yeah, tiebreaker match. It's where we would actually play to determine seeding. Yep.
That's cool.
It's only happened once that I know of. And we were actually talking about this with Crowder, because he was involved in the only one. It was at Champs. The little finger gun, I know. It was at Champs when there was a 3-way tie for the pool play, and they all played each other in a round robin to get out. Like the Michael Scott meme where they're all circling around.
Yeah.
Didn't make it, dude.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Damn. Rest in peace.
Didn't they? It was like a round 11 or something. Like it was heartbreaking.
Bro, can you imagine though if we have a tiebreaker match? That'd be lit. I want that so bad to happen now.
Eventually, I guess. Because I was thinking, is it even possible? Because let's say Surge are 5-0, 15-4 map count or whatever, and same with FaZe, then I guess there is a world where the teams they played could on average have the same placing, but it's almost certainly there'll be a difference there. But whatever. So New York are chalked, Paris are chalked, Mutineers maybe, but I'm going to say they're chalked. So we've got to choose 8 out of the remaining 9 to make it in. So FaZe, Surge, Ravens are already through. So one of Toronto, Boston, Thieves, Gorillas, OpTic, and ROKKR won't make it based on our logic. Which one do you think it's going to be? Because I think OpTic are going to go 1-1 this week. I think they're going to have a good enough map count, I think, after they beat Boston. But I don't know if map count actually matters all that much. Because if they win a tiebreaker with Minnesota, then they lose the tiebreaker, which means that they would be ninth, I guess.
Wait, can you
but
imagine?
if they have a tiebreaker with Gorillas, then it might be different because it goes to map count. I don't know.
Can you imagine if like Crone's like rumored one was true, where if you finish ninth, like if OpTic obviously are hosting this home series and they had to play the eighth seed,
exactly. That's what Crone said, right? They had to do a play-in.
But like Lion, who do you take for your? I mean, obviously, I feel like
who's
Atlanta,
my bottom four?
Yeah, who's your bottom four?
Is what we want to know.
Paris, New York, Florida, OpTic.
Wow.
I feel like it's pretty safe.
That's quite something.
It's simple.
Yeah.
No, but that's just how it's going to be.
No. I'm in the same boat as you. Yeah.
Wow. That's
the only way
for the boys.
The only way that doesn't flip is if either one OpTic surprises Toronto and beats them, and like that could obviously be the case if Cammy's still sick at the time, or if Minnesota goes 0-2 this week.
I think Minnesota going 0-2. That's my call.
Yeah, because
I think they're losing to FaZe. They'll be 1-3, and then I think they get beaten Game 5 or Game 4 by Gorillas, and then OpTic make it through and they go out. But that's my prediction.
So if Minnesota loses to us but then beats LAG, they would be 2-3 as well, right?
They would.
LA Gorillas would be 2-3.
They would.
Does OpTic leapfrog the Gorillas at that point? Because OpTic has not played the Gorillas, correct?
No, they haven't. But they will come down to map count, and I feel like OpTic is quite. Oh no, they're quite similar.
Yeah. So right now
they have a one map advantage in the map count stakes. They need to maps is actually going to be very important there, isn't it? Because they can't afford to get 3-0'd by Toronto, you know.
Dude,
they have to go Game 5.
Banger of a week.
It is actually absurd.
This is a banger. Like literally every day actually pretty much matters to this, because now on Saturday or on Friday, OpTic pretty much has to beat Toronto or not lose. I would say probably not lose 0-3. Or you would want to lose. If you lose, it's got to be map 5 to save your map count.
Yeah, exactly.
Minnesota probably just needs to win one either on Friday or Saturday to get in. LAG cannot lose on Saturday, and if they do lose, it has to be like 3-2. Holy shit!
Still a world where a load of the teams Toronto are going to be safe because their map count's so good, but a Boston or a Thieves, Boston this week, who do they play? They play New York, so that should be a free dub. But Thieves, they play Ultra and Paris. Okay, it's also a free dub. Okay, ignore me. So Boston and Thieves are going to be safe. So yeah, I think it does come down to Gorillas, OpTic, and ROKKR there.
Boston has a tiebreaker versus LAG as well. So Boston's up on LAG. God.
This is crazy. I'm going to say ROKKR don't make it. But I think that any of those three is a reasonable call, because these games get very intense and the map count situation is incredibly important. I hope the CDL do as good a job as they can explaining it, because these matches, this is why this format is good, right, compared to the groups. Because in the groups, it's because you only play the other teams, the way the group is looking is very clear. Whereas this way, you go into the final week and everything is up for grabs. I'm pretty sure only 3 of the 8 teams are guaranteed. Maybe Ultra's guaranteed on map count, but I don't know.
It's good and bad, because then when you start getting these multi-team tiebreakers, head-to-head is stupid for those tiebreakers. If 4 teams are tied, then but what if all 4 of those teams have beaten each other, one of the other teams once?
The circle, yeah.
And then you go to map count, then it's map count. That I do agree with you.
That's a bit sketchy, right?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. But a big pro is there's drama. This whole weekend is drama. There's drama from the start of the beginning. I know that Esport Engine's gonna kill it with hyping this up. I'm actually so excited to see how they hype it up, but it is very confusing, I will say.
At least every team goes to the LAN. That's all I'll say. Because if people were getting kicked out of the LAN based on online map count, then please.
Yeah, I think simple as if you're an OpTic fan, you want ROKKR to beat LAG this week, and then you're happy.
Or lose to us and LAG.
Yeah, but
one or the other.
Right. Actually, yeah, it doesn't matter then. Whatever.
Yeah.
OpTic's going to win.
Yeah.
Will they though?
Jesus. This is gonna be a good week.
It's going to be a very good week, and we'll be here next week talking about what happened. Guys, final thoughts. Austin, pretty good. You lads are 3-0. Didn't really talk about you guys this week, but got the job done once again. Took down Boston. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're looking confident. Last year you went on an 11 series win streak after you lost the Kickoff Classic. So trying to beat that this year, you know?
Yeah, just going game by game because I mean right now, I mean arguably we still have two tough matchups. I mean Minnesota obviously. You know, I think it's safe to say that one's going to go down deeper than what people are thinking because Minnesota are actually a very, very good S&D team, very good control. So they're kind of like one of those matchup nightmare teams. So they're like the Toronto-esque for us. So that's going to be a tight one. And, you know, New York, even though New York looks horrible right now, it's still New York where they could just randomly just have a good series. And obviously Clay wants to beat our team very badly. So, like, when they play us, it's always tight, Clay and Krim, actually. So, like, I would not be surprised if New York comes out with like this huge fire on Sunday. So honestly, like we're taking. I love the way we're practicing right now and like our mindset. So we're taking it day by day and just literally just trying to just better ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we're pretty much guaranteed for the major. And at this point, it's map pool and it's getting better at the micro plays across all the modes. So that's what we're going to be working on this week, and hopefully we can go into the major strong.
Awesome stuff. Lion, final thoughts before we close out the show? Good to have you back.
Let me think. I just want to see Paris win a series. That's my goal for this week. That'd be nice.
You think they're going to beat the Thieves?
Yeah, man.
I want that. I want that in your pick'ems.
No,
honestly,
don't. Oh yeah, I'm still winning pick'ems, by the way. Let's chuck that in there. I only have 3 wrong.
Bro, hold up. You put LAG in the doc at first, right? For your pick'em. And then in the graphic, you switched it. Because you must have like switched it when you were doing it. Yeah. And then LAG ended up winning. I was like, thank God he switched that.
Oh shit.
Oh. Wow, wait, so did you bless Austin? Is that how it worked?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I'm still down. I'm still down by 1, but now he could have had
do that.
2.
I could do the blessing, that's for sure.
I'd just gone with my pick. I would have every pick correct apart from the 2 OpTic series.
Yep.
That's tough. I always get caught in the trap of picking OpTic and then they lose.
Also, by the way, I completely fucked up earlier in the show. Apparently in the Elite, they do 2 best of 5s for the grand finals if you're going from the losers. We're going back to the classic Call of Duty.
I know. I was just thinking that, right? They're like, doing the normal format, but they won't do that in the CPL.
Thank you for doing that, at least in the Elite. Hopefully we get that in the future for, our finals or a map advantage, or something. But they do it in the Elite. They do it in the Elite, and apparently it's too complicated for me because I didn't realize it.
Yeah, actually, it's too complicated for you.
Shout out Minnesota Academy. They just
they did do the win.
They dropped the first one, but they won the second one 3-1. So congratulations, Jeremy Metals, Lucky, Real, and Invidian. I think is how you say their coach's name, Invidian. He was the pro last year, or
Invidian was decent.
The player last year, yeah. So congrats to them. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that because I completely missed it.
Yeah, all good. Too complicated for phase analysts, so we've got to get rid of it. 2 vs 5 they got to go. But yes, thanks all for tuning in. It's been a great show. And next week, I'm sure it's going to be very interesting as well. Interestingly enough, actually, next week there's no games. The way this should work in a normal stage is that it goes week 3 of qualification straight into the major 3 days later. This time, probably because they couldn't get the venue at the right time, I don't know. There's a week off between the final qualification and the start of the major. But what that does mean is that as soon as the major ends, we're straight back into stage 2 qualification, which is, I think that's the case.
Do you guys like that? The week break. I forgot to ask you guys earlier. I know we were just about that.
Between the stages or from now to the major?
From like the end of the qualification to the major.
Like it.
I would prefer it just to go in personally. If you've got to do a week at one point, then it's better to do the week after the major than before. Because right now it just goes straight to stage 2. You could do a week either side. I don't mind that either.
That's the best. Because right now I will say like the way the major works is on match days, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you have to warm up to other teams. You're not practicing. And then usually almost every team takes off. Every team has to take off Monday now. Or they don't have to. They can scrim amateurs if they want. But almost every team takes off Monday now. So when you do these qualification matches, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday off, that's 4 days pretty much. You're not getting much practice. And then Tuesday's a travel day. So then you're not practicing for 5 days going into a major, which is really tough. So I do like having the break, because that means you can kind of revamp your practice for a week going into the major, and you can actually look polished going in. And that allows us to do more content to hype up the major going in, and the CDL, if they actually do it right, just hype that up going in. But now, with this week, with the major, and then you start the qualification the week after, you get the same effect for the first week of the qualifications.
Yeah,
you're just under practice going into the qualification matches for stage 2, which sucks.
I'd quite like it a week off either side, really. I don't know, just builds a bit more tension, makes the season go a bit longer as well. I don't know. We'll see what they do. But yeah, let's close it out there. Thanks all for joining us in the Twitch chat, on YouTube after the fact, on all the podcast platforms. Thanks, fellas, for joining once again. Thanks so much for producing the background. We'll be back next week talking all sorts of Call of Duty stuff. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen, which makes things very exciting. And who knows, rostermania probably just around the corner with how some of these teams are looking. But yes, thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.